Hello, everybody. Special edition of Bedford County Sports Live. I'm Bill Anderson and my fellow county commissioner, Mr. Drew Hooker, beside me.
Right.
David Thomas is behind the camera today. We couldn't get him out with us. Drew, I don't think he want to be on with us today.
Well, that's all right. I guess we'll have to pick up the slack. So,
well, we've got a big show today. We're going to talk NFL draft. We're going to talk the Tennessee Titans. We're going to talk about the winners and losers of the draft. But right now, we're going to hear a word from our sponsor, and it's Corner Cleaners. Because if they can clean Kenny Parker's stuff, Drew, I promise you, they can clean yours. Let's hear a word from them. We'll be right back.
We provide quality services you can rely on. Located in Shelbyville, we're the area's leading dry cleaner, proudly serving customers throughout Bedford County since 2001. We provide same-day dry cleaning and laundry service as well as tuxedo rentals. For customer convenience, we offer delivery and also have a drive-through and overnight drop box.
For all your dry cleaning needs, call Corner Cleaners.
Welcome back. We're on Bedford County Sports Live, and we're going to talk Tennessee Titans. The Titans, Drew, let's start in the first round. We had pick 7. Everybody assumed it was Joe Alt. Joe Alt goes at 5 to the Chargers. Then the Titans come on the clock at 7. Now, my question to you is, my sources say this. Had Malik Neighbors been there, that's who we were taking.
Yeah, I think that Callahan, he was very clear that he favors people who can score points, and Neighbors can score points. But, J.C. Latham, I think he was number 1 on their board when it came to offensive linemen. I think there was a lot of talk about Joe Alt, but I do think J.C. Latham being a higher ceiling type player, I think he's exactly what they were looking for. And I think, a lot of quotes come out after the draft that he was Bill Callahan's number 1 player of this draft. Now,
first of all, he's 6'6", 342, 11-inch hands. That's huge.
Yeah.
And I heard Nick Saban say this: if he ever gets his hands on you, you're done.
Yeah, and I think that was one thing that separated him from the other tackles is I think he kept very good distance with allowing these players not to get into his chest, but really being able to hand fight with them, and then good footwork. A lot of people are making a big deal about him playing right tackle and then switching over, but I do think that Bill Callahan being the offensive line coach changes that, because he's done it with Tyron Smith. He's done it with Jedrick Willis up at the Browns last year. And so if we didn't have the probably the undisputed number 1 offensive line coach in the league, I think this might be probably
in the history of the league.
Yeah, Munchak may be working with him there, but I think that at the end of the day, I think that this may be the best decision for a cornerstone. You've got a young quarterback on the team. Now you get his left tackle. I think this is the right way to go for the Titans.
The left tackle part, he went to IMG Academy. He was the number 1 rated offensive tackle, a 5-star recruit. And he played left tackle at IMG. This kid, what's amazing about this guy to me is he's so powerful. He's so strong. When you watch Joe Alt, I'm not saying Alt's not going to be a really good pro, but I prefer him to Alt because Alt played 2 or 3 games a year that Notre Dame plays against really good talent. The rest of the time, it's Navy, it's Air Force. With this kid, he was playing Georgia, Michigan, Texas, and the tape is really good on him. And I don't think I'm going to give you a quote I gave yesterday. This class is a deep tackle class, and he's going to be the best of the group. Now, this is an NFL unnamed general manager. I see him and Alt as the only 2 operating at a high level in the NFL, with Latham being the better tackle.
I think that the big difference between those 2 is Latham is a physical tackle.
Yes.
He is not going to just sit back and let him come. He's going to attack. He's going to help the run game. He's going to also help protect the blind side. Alt is more of a technician. Now, the thing is having Bill Callahan, Latham's going to get that training as well. And so I think the ceiling is just much higher on Latham. I think he is the much more dominant offensive lineman. And I think that you can kind of see throughout the draft, as we talk about this, you're going to see physicality is a big key of almost every one of these picks.
And I think the other thing that came out was on the visit up to Nashville, Callahan and Latham spent 2 hours together watching film. That tells you a lot right there.
Yeah, and the question is, why do you play right tackle his whole 4 years? Well, Evan Neal was the guy that played left tackle, and he was drafted in the first round a couple years ago. The reason he didn't switch last year is because I think that they didn't want to disrupt what they thought he could be. He was already a dominant right tackle. They didn't want to make the swap in case something happened there. They had the young freshman come in.
And I was told
year.
they were a little weak at right guard, and they wanted to solidify the right side.
They were young. They were
young.
young. Yeah, I believe so. And I think that, you just you don't mess with things that work. And J.C. Latham did a great job at right tackle, but for the Titans, I think he's going to be a good dominant left tackle. If he ends up not working out there, he's going to be a really good right tackle.
Well, Bill Callahan, I trust. I can promise you.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the second round real quick, and then we'll take a break. But let's talk about this one. This was a little bit controversial with some of my buddies. The guys on GoTitans.com did not like it. The Titans podcast, they didn't like it. I love it. Devondre Swift.
Well, the big controversy is the DUI.
Yeah, sure.
He got that within 2 days before he actually came to the Titans visit. But if you look through all the reports, the Tennessee Titans did their homework. They went out and they sent several of their individuals, including their assistant GM, to his town, talked to his family, talked to the local law enforcement, talked to the different areas to be able to find out, is this a bad kid or is this a good kid that just had a bad day? And I think they determined this is a good kid that just had a bad day. And so I think with that, you can't take away the dominance of a 6'5", 366-pound kid.
And if you watch Texas, he collapses the pocket. He is the destroyer of the pocket. And he moved for a guy this size. He moves pretty good too.
Well, and there was a lot of reports out there that this is a 2-down player. He's not going to play on 3rd down. And unfortunately, a lot of the podcasts that are out there didn't do their homework.
Right.
This kid had 503 snaps, which is more snaps than every other defensive tackle that went in the 1st and 2nd round. And so when you talk about that, this kid plays all 3 downs. Now, is he going to have to lose weight? Yes. He's going to have to get down to around 350. Yeah, I think 350. And I think once you get down around that 350, and the key is what you forget is Jeffrey Simmons is on this line. This now allows Jeffrey Simmons to bounce around to be able to put him in the favorable matchup
now
and just let him space.
You cannot double team Big Jeff the way we were.
Absolutely. And it keeps the offensive line off of the linebackers now. Now you let Kenneth Murray do what Kenneth Murray does, and you let our 4th round pick do what he does. And so the thing is I believe that we just did not have this kid on the team. We didn't have anybody on the team that we could trust to take up blockers. And I think that this is controversial pick, but I think it's going to turn out okay. I think that this is one of those, between the two, you had almost 700 pounds of beef. And I think that at the end of the day, both are going to be extremely good players for the Titans at both positions of need.
This kid won the Outland Trophy as the nation's top interior defensive lineman. He was the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year, first team Big 12, played in all 14 games, 45 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 4 PBUs, and 1 block kick. I compare him to Haloti Ngata. That's who he reminds me of.
And he's going to play a similar role.
Right.
He's going to keep him off Ray Lewis. That's what he did.
That's what he did.
And so the other key with him is, there's only been a handful of defensive tackles that have won the Outland Trophy.
You're right.
Aaron Donald being one of them.
You're right.
So the thing is to be a tackle in a team like Texas and win the Outland Trophy, it says a lot about who that player is. And so, again, it's controversial because of the DUI, but if the Titans felt like that was a one-time thing, I think it's a value pick.
And the other thing, other knocks, some people said he weighs too much, and this is the one that gets me. He's too big for the modern NFL. Are you kidding me? And I have seen this numerous places. He's too big for the modern NFL. I promise you, he may be too big for the NFL because he may just dominate, but no one's too big.
No, and I think the biggest thing is he moved well at 366.
Absolutely.
Now, if you talk to his defensive coordinator at Texas, a lot of reports came out that said that he was a dominant player at 366, but they would have liked him to be around 350. Right. So the Titans are just going to have to get in there, get him under control, make sure that the personal life is where it needs to be. He's in a room with Jeffrey Simmons, which is going to help. Got a good mentor there. I mean, it's been a great pro. But I think that at the end of the day, that if they can keep the off-the-field stuff good, which I think up to that point has been the only infraction, I think on the field's going to be.
What does this do for Harold Landry and Key coming off the edge? Because now you've really solidified the middle Now you can really bring it from the outside.
Well, you've just got to now. You've got to make an offense pick. Who do they want to block better?
That's right.
And the thing is they're going to have to try to get these 4 guys on the D line, keep them off of the quarterback, and now that's going to free up the linebackers to do what they need.
And
to
he's
do.
a run stuffer too. That was the other thing about him. If you watch the tape of Texas, he is a run stuffer.
Oh man, he moves well for being 360.
Let's take a quick break here from our sponsors. We're going to come back, and then we're going to dive into the 4th round, 5th, 6th, and 7th round of the Titans draft.
Company is a locally owned family business that has proudly served the Middle Tennessee area since 1934. We have a wide selection of furniture, appliances, electronics, and mattresses for every budget and design taste. We carry the brands that you know and trust, so you're sure to find exactly what you're looking for. Need financing? We have you covered. With our service department, you can rest assured that we will take care of you after the purchase. Visit our Shelbyville store at 400 Madison Street today.
Welcome back. We're back in here on Bedford County Sports Live, and we're going to talk about the 4th round. Well, there was one guy, and it was a linebacker. We had a need at linebacker, and there wasn't that many in this draft. This was for middle linebacker, inside linebacker. It was a weak draft, and we were sitting here, and I was on pins and needles thinking somebody's going to take this kid. I'm thrilled that they got Cedric Gray from North Carolina.
They got lucky.
Yes.
Because without having a 3rd round pick, there was a run on linebackers in the middle of the 3rd round. And I was a little nervous because when you started seeing like Colston from Michigan come off the board and those type things, because I think they had him targeted. They brought him in for a visit.
Yeah.
And then this Cedric Gray did not have any contact with the Tennessee Titans through the entire process. And so I thought that this wasn't somebody that was on their board. But what they figured out is that this was a guy that they targeted in the 4th round. They thought that he would.
And they had met with him in Mobile at the Senior Bowl.
They did.
I heard Rand saying
well, they
with
didn't bring him in on their top 30.
They did not bring him in on a top 30 visit, correct?
Now, but this is a 6'2", 234-pound kid, and one of the things that stands out is his football IQ. They say he's extremely smart. He understands defenses. He understands offensive fronts. And so because of that, this may be a kid that relieves one of the problems that they have is who's going to wear the green dot. I think that he might be that guy. And he's a very good competitor out of North Carolina. And I think that he's just somebody that I think is going to come in and compete right away. Now, Gibbons is kind of holding that spot.
Oh, come on.
We'll see if he can come in.
No Gibbons for me. This is your guy right here. I think he's a day one starter. That's the beauty of this. I think you got right now we're at 3 day one starters. Got 121 tackles in 2023, 145 in 2022. But he's got a nose for the football. If you watch the tape, had 5 interceptions and he forces fumbles. He just has a nose and a playmaking knack for the football. And that's a key for a linebacker.
He's super athletic and he does a couple things really well. Blitzes really well. He finds the ball.
Right.
And he can drop into coverage. And they showed several clips of that throughout the draft. Now,
he allows Murray maybe that we brought in to do what Murray does, and that's be a disruptor.
Yes.
And then let this guy come back and clean it up.
Well, the Chargers put Murray in a box that he wasn't comfortable with. They put him in the green dot.
Yep.
They tried to make him make every call. He had to try to get the D-line set up. That's not what he is.
Nope.
He's an athletic guy that goes and gets the ball and changes momentum of defense to offense. And so with that, Murray now, it takes a big load off of him. Now he can just go make plays and let Cedric Gray make sure D-line's set up and then make tackles in between the tackles. So I think at the end of the day, I think you're right. I think it's going to be three starters here. But it's just one of those things where when you start drafting people down in the 4th round, there's a reason they dropped. And I think that with him, it's really probably that he was only a 2-year starter. But I think that with that, I think
it's the fact he ran a 4.64 and people thought he was faster, and I think it hurt him.
Probably, but
this is a guy that when he's got pads on, plays fast.
Yeah, at 4.64 wheel is probably not a good time. You need that as a 4.5, 4.5.5. But a 4.64 at the mic, not bad. I think that's going to be a guy that they will
end
up
faster in that time.
Probably, absolutely. And there's a lot of players that we drafted that plays more than they timed. But
just because you run a speed with no helmet, no pads, doesn't mean you do it with helmet and shoulder pads.
Absolutely. And everybody looks good in shorts.
They do.
So at the end of the day, what we have to do is I think that we have to trust Rand on this pick. because
I love the
with,
pick. One of my
with
favorite
Denard
ones.
Wilson as the new defensive coordinator, he reminds me very much of Patrick Queen.
Yeah.
Very similar type
Right.
player, but he's a sideline to sideline guy. So we'll see. I think he's going to be a great pick for us.
5th round, a guy the Titans had in, and they liked him a lot, was Jarvis Brownlee, the corner from Louisville, who was a Florida State transfer, 4'5" guy, 5'10", 194. Had a great Senior Bowl, a very aggressive press corner.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's a good depth piece for the Titans right here in the 5th round.
Yeah, he's probably a slot corner because he likes to be aggressive. Probably an eventual move to safety could be in his future. Just depends. He likes to hit. If you look at all of his tape, I think there was the opening game of last year. He made a play on the opening drive of taking a screen and knocking it down behind there. And you can see he plays fast, he plays aggressive, good size.
Puts his hands on you.
Yeah, I mean 5'10".
A lot like Snead. Plays a lot like Legarius Snead that we got from Kansas City.
Yeah, he's 5'10", but he's almost 200 pounds.
Uh-huh.
So he's a little thicker cornerback. And I think the great thing is we did so much corner acquisition in free agency. Now this allows this guy to be a depth piece, to be able to kind of learn and grow. And then again, if they struggle at the safety position, could be somebody that they can move over.
Moving to the 6th round real quick, and that would be we took Jaquan Jackson, wide receiver out of Tulane. He's only 5'9", but he's 188 pounds, ran a 4.42 40. The key here, Drew, is this kid returns kicks, and he scored touchdowns as a receiver, rusher, and a punt returner.
Yeah, he's their kind of little gadget type player, very similar to how Debo gets used out in San Francisco. Maybe they're not to that quality, but the great thing is they got to see this kid last year because he played on the same team and was actually college roommates with Tajay Sharp, and so because of that, they knew who this kid was. Right. He was on their list. With the change of the new rules in the NFL, with the new kickoff rule, having a return guy is a requirement now. Used to, it was a kind of an iffy as long as you had a punt returner.
And we really didn't have a punt returner. I think this puts Kyle Phillips on those.
Yeah, it's going to at least make him – he's going to have to step up this training camp or he'll end up on the street. But I do think that right now, I mean, I would say that Kyle Phillips has the leg up.
Sure.
But, again, this kid could definitely come in and push him.
All right. Bill, on the 7th round, interesting prospect out of the University of Miami, James Williams. And he's 6'4", 231, listed as a safety. This kid was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school. Went to Miami, ran a 4.65 40. He's a big guy. He may move to linebacker.
Yeah, I think they already have kind of said that their expectation is to have him as a linebacker. And I think that's good because it's a good depth piece. We don't have a lot of depth. Right. Otis Reese is probably the only person on the roster, maybe Gibbons, that will actually hold on. I like
Otis Reese too, by the way.
Otis Reese is just undersized. Now, with this kid is 6'4", 230, probably a perfect size for linebacker. If you look, he has a nose for finding the football. Now he's in coverage. He's a liability at safety, which
he likes to hit you.
Which is why I think that they want to move him to linebacker. Right. But think about it. This could be your sub-package linebacker that can go up against a tight end, that can take a fullback or running back out of the backfield. So I do think this is somebody that is going to be a depth piece now. Depth piece for a couple years, but I do think he makes the roster. I think that there's a reason they brought him in as a project, and so hopefully, we'll see how it does. But I think he's definitely moving to linebacker.
Final pick of the 7th round, edge rusher Jalen Harold out of Michigan, 6'4", 250, 37-inch vertical, 6.5 sacks, 9 forced fumbles, 4.68 40-yard dash, which was good. A good blitzer, quick first step, core strength, excellent tackler, and he's ferocious against the run. Now, I don't know if this guy makes the team or not, but very good player at Michigan. I don't know if he's big enough, but 7th round, that's where you're at.
Yeah, I think that he's Harold Landry size. So I think he could definitely fit there. We have Rashad Weaver that's the bigger outside linebacker that can set the edge. This is more of your true pin your ears back pass rusher. So I think that I feel comfortable with a position like this in the 7th round. We needed an edge rusher. And one thing that stood out about this draft is they got value in every round and fit every need that they had coming into the draft. So those two things really stood out for me for the Titans was they fit those needs, but I think they got some good quality players as well.
Let's take a quick break. We're going to come back and we're going to do something different here. We're going to also just talk about the undrafted free agents the Titans have already signed since the draft real quick. And then we're going to talk about winners and losers of the draft, because for every winner, I got to be a loser. So we're going to talk winners and losers overall of the NFL with the draft. And there was some of both yesterday. We're going to address that here in a minute as well. We'll be right back after hearing a word from our sponsor. Titans NFL draft. We're talking about it. Let's talk real quick, Drew, about undrafted free agents. This was a kid I thought we might have drafted because I know Callahan loved him. His name's Cole Spencer, offensive guard out of Texas Tech. That was a guy we'd spent some time with. I'm surprised he wasn't drafted. I think that kid's got a chance to make the roster.
I think he's projected 5th round, so I think that good value. I really liked him, and I think he's definitely somebody that can make the roster. Good offensive lineman, true guard. He's not going to be able to be a big versatile guy, but I know he can play right or left side.
Khalid Duke, edge rusher out of Kansas State. A lot of people had him getting drafted. I was kind of surprised. He was probably the 6th, 7th round guy.
They brought in 3 edge rushers as undrafted free agents. I think they're going to compete with our 7th round pick, and whichever one of those can impress through the preseason, I think is going to make the roster. Who
was the kid, not to put you on the spot, Drew, and you can look it up on your computer. The kid we brought in last year was undrafted, made it look really good in the preseason. You have to remember who that was. He looked really good in the preseason, made the team. But he never got to play much.
Yeah, let me look, because, I think that
because I absolutely remember this kid had a great preseason. He was out of a small school, and he played on special teams some. But in the preseason, he had several sacks, looked really good. And that's the thing about these undrafted guys. The chances of them making it aren't very good. But every year, there's somebody usually on the Titans that makes this roster.
Yeah, Thomas Rush. That's it. Yeah, Thomas Rush. And he come from a small school. He had the NCAA single season record of sacks. I think he's just one of those guys that is just size-wise. They're having to kind of bring him along. So we'll see what he does and see if he took the jump. But, again, they're bringing in a lot of young pass rushers, and they're going to kind of see who stands out and see which one can make the team.
The shocking one to me we brought in as an undrafted free agent is Dylan Johnson. That was the running back at Washington. He had 1,200 yards rushing nearly, and he 5.1 yards a carry, 16 rushing touchdowns. I'm shocked he wasn't drafted.
This is a kid. This is your number 3 running back on the team right now. I'll go ahead and call it now. It's a lock to make the roster. I think he was probably my 3rd or 4th best running back in this draft.
I agree.
And what was shocking is this was not a running back heavy draft. Not a lot of quality. There was nobody in the 1st or 2nd round. I think that this kid is going to make the roster and will push for some playing time. He's going to be a kid that can run it between the tackles. He can catch it out of the backfield. He comes from a very heavy passing offense in Washington, so he knows how to do that. And
he had a nose to the goal line.
Yeah.
And played hurt all year.
Yeah, good kid. I think this is one of those steals as an undrafted free agent. This kind of stands out as that LeGarrette Blount. Back when they got him, but the difference is this kid's not had any problems. This is a wonderful, wonderful undrafted free agent.
And just to mention, because he's a Tennessee guy, Jamari Smalls, they picked him up as well from Tennessee. They got the corner, I think, from Tennessee that was the BYU transfer.
Probably comes down between him and Hassan Haskins, who gets that 4th tailback spot.
Yes, I would think you're probably right on that one. All right, Drew, let's talk winners and losers of the NFL draft. Who was your big winner? I think there was one in particular that just stood out.
I hate to admit it, but the Philadelphia Eagles, when you can come out of a draft with the 2 best corners, and that's your number 1 need.
Absolutely. And it just kept falling to them, right? It seems like it happens every year.
Well, and I thought maybe the Titans might go with Cooper DeJean in the 2nd round, probably at safety. And that's where I think he ends up landing. I think he's a very good corner. I think he could be exceptional safety.
Ball skills, he's got them.
Yeah, and
one of my favorite players in the draft was Jalen Hunt. I know he came from a small school, but he's an edge rusher. I really like the Titans. I think we're high on him. I think he went around or so earlier than we thought. But also Jeremiah Trotter Jr., a legacy player linebacker. He went to Philadelphia.
Yeah,
good looking linebacker.
Well, and
the rich just get richer.
Well, and that's a great point. This is something that this draft had. That's been kind of special. There's 13 legacy players, 13. And I think that's just important with McCaffrey and Jerry Rice, Trotter that you mentioned, Marvin Harrison, Frank Gore, Nugent, Harrell. I mean, just so many quality players. Right. And when you talk about that, I mean, think about it. Jerry Rice, his son,
Marvin Harrison, his son.
Marvin Harrison. Those are two of the best receivers that's ever been in the league. And so I hope that they both, are able to do something. Rice staying on the West Coast for the San Diego Chargers. I think that's a great landing spot. That's a very good depth chart for him. So he could really, really stand out there. So, but that's kind of a neat thing that kind of came out this year is there was some legacy players.
Teams that always stick out to me are the Ravens. I think they do as good a job drafting as anybody in the National Football League. They steal T.J. Tampa in the 4th round.
Yeah, Titans brought him in for a visit. I think they really wanted him. If he would have stung around to the 5th, I think that's who they pick instead of Brownlee. But again,
I couldn't believe he was there. I mean, I saw him projected maybe late 1st, definitely 2nd round, and he lasted me into the 4th round.
I think that corners are one of those things that it all is scheme specific.
Right.
Some corners are better in other systems, but that was definitely something that stood out. And I hate to admit it, but I think the Bears had a good draft up until around the
4th round. And I can't give them a good grade because you drafted a punter in the 4th round. Nobody drafts a punter in the 4th round. So your A goes to about a C or a D.
Well, I'm not I still don't understand. I don't think Torrey Taylor was going to go, to anybody else. And so I don't know why you don't trade down, maybe get a future pick. And
you had
pick him up in the 6th.
And you didn't have many picks. The Bears didn't. They only had 4. I think they traded down one time to make it 5. But to start the draft, they only had 4 picks. Is all they had. And you waste one on a punter. I'm sorry. But another team I thought did a nice job. The Steelers always do a good job of the draft. I love Roman Wilson, the receiver out of Michigan. Peyton Wilson, the linebacker.
If he stays healthy, he may be the best linebacker out of this draft.
But I'm going to have to give credit to somebody I never give credit to. The Command Skins. I thought actually did a good job. I love Daniels. I thought he was the best quarterback in the draft. I liked him better than the other kid that went to Chicago. But the value here was getting that defensive tackle, John Newton out of Illinois. That was the guy that I liked better than our pick. He was a 1st-round guy, and he falls to him at 36.
I think in most mock drafts he was 16 to 18, somewhere right in there. He's a
disruptor.
He reminds me of Jeffrey Simmons.
Yes, he does me too.
He is almost an identical.
Agree.
I will tell you, if you turn the tape on that kid, every time you watch Illinois, he's making a play.
And they're trying to double, triple team him because really all they had didn't matter. The guy sheds people.
Yeah, I think the Commanders. It's a new day.
Command Skins.
Yeah, Command Skins. I think it's a new day in Washington because
you got Snyder out of there. You got a well-run organization now. You're letting football people make the decisions.
I think they went and got a good coach. Yep. I think they've got some really good front office staff. I think almost every one of their picks were value picks.
I will have to bring up the Kansas City Chiefs because I think Andy Reid, Hall of Fame coach, nice trade up to get Worthy. Maybe Worthy doesn't fit a lot of places, but how's he going to fit with Patrick Mahomes at 4-2-1 to go with Marquise Brown? Now, the Chiefs are absolutely could win 3 in a row.
Yeah, and I think that they had to find somebody early because of Rashee Rice going to be out for at least 4 games, probably 6 with that. So I think they had to find somebody. So I think it was a good.
And they got
pick.
The last tackle on the board after the run on the tackles, a big tackle from BYU. They picked him up in the 2nd round. They got a safety out of Washington State. I liked him as well. Well, to have a winner. And I also like the Chargers draft. I'm going to admit I thought they did a pretty good job.
Yeah, very good physical draft.
The question I have with the Chargers is you want to be physical, you want to run the football. Who are your running backs? J.K. Dobbins, that keeps tearing ACLs.
Yeah.
And the Edwards kid.
Well, they're pairing J.K. back with Roman Wilson, the offensive coordinator, or Greg Roman.
Roman.
So, again.
And they bring in the 2 Ravens running backs.
Yeah, I think that at the end of the
Edwards,
day.
as Todd Bobo would say, is a plotter.
Well, I think at the end of the day, this is a 2 to 3 year process. So I think what they're going to do is they're going to find somebody either in free agency next year or go through a draft again. But again, this is a 2 to 3 year process.
I'm not going to put them as a big look. I didn't like Dallas's draft either. Another team that needed a running back, they got nothing.
They have nothing.
And they drafted nothing. And they think they're going to bring Ezekiel Elliott back.
Yeah,
Elliott's done.
Well, and Deuce Vaughn, I mean, you're going to have a kid that's, 5'8" and 140 pounds as your tailback.
Who was your biggest loser? If you had to pick one, who would it be?
Well,
just didn't have a very good draft.
I think the Cleveland Browns had a really bad draft.
I agree with that.
also think the Indianapolis Colts. I think those were the two that stood out to me. And the reason why Cleveland Browns is number one, I think that they didn't have a first-round pick.
Still
And
paying
so,
for the Deshaun Watson trade.
Yeah, and with that, they did not make very good value picks. Throughout the draft, they picked a lot of guys that were
Right.
lower rated than where they ended up drafting. And then if you go to the Colts, I did not like several of their picks. And the reason why that is because I just feel like they reached on several players. I did like their first-round pick in Latu. But
I like their second-round pick. I thought he was a first-rounder, Donnie Mitchell from Texas.
I think that the Pitt offensive tackle that they got in the third, not very. I think he was a fifth-round guy. I think the center out of Wisconsin, they got him in the fourth round. I think he was a guy in the sixth or seventh round. I just think they reached on several people. I think they got middle of the round. They took Anthony Gould. May turn out to be a good receiver. I just think that Malik Washington was still on the board. Right. That's somebody I'm going to pick ahead of him. But again, I just feel like that they were a little low on my draft.
The 49ers disappointed me. Normally, and maybe it always comes back for them, but I didn't think they had a very good draft. And I think usually they're one of the top 5 in the league.
Well, I think that the big thing is they just didn't have a ton of high picks. Of course, they're picking at the end of the round. Ricky Pearsall.
Not a first-round receiver.
That's just probably a middle of the second-round guy because I think a lot of them had, a lot of mocks had the Titans maybe looking at him in the second round. It's kind of a reach. I think the offensive guard, he played tackle for Kansas in the third round. He's a guard.
Yeah.
And so, again, I think they fit some needs, but again, I don't think they really stood out as overly great picks. Now, we'll see. The 49ers didn't have a lot of holes. The one thing that stood out for the 49ers is they did not trade either one of the receivers. And, either Ayuk or Debo were both on the block. And a lot of people felt like that either the Bengals or the Chargers or somebody like that may make a trade during the draft. But both of them are still on the roster. We'll see because they're not going to be able to pay both.
No.
So we'll see which one ends up getting traded before the season.
I thought the Carolina Panthers had a terrible draft.
Well, it's hard to get worse than what the Carolina Panthers are right now.
Not very good. So, and I'm going to still have to say the Atlanta Falcons, absolutely abysmal. I'm sorry. That took the cake when you take the quarterback at 8. And I know Kenny Parker, and I said this on the show yesterday, compared what the Green Bay Packers did to this. There's a difference. When they drafted Aaron Rodgers, it was at 24. And then when they came back to Jordan Love, it was at 26, not at pick 8.
Yeah, the thing is obviously they fell in love with Penix. I think that there was 3 teams, the Raiders, the Seahawks, and the Broncos that were considering moving up into the top 10.
Broncos were crying when that happened.
And I think that all of them reached out to the Titans to try to get ahead of probably the picks at 11, Minnesota, Denver. And
you weren't worried about Atlanta at 8. No one was.
No, it shocked me, but really about 10 minutes before the pick came out, there was a lot of rumors that it could be a quarterback. Now, I think where they get the bad grade is they should have probably told their owner and they should have probably told their $100 million quarterback that they were going to draft his eventual replacement. And so I think that's where the Falcons messed up. I think that I understand the logic, just not at the location.
Yeah,
pick 8.
I didn't care for the rest of the
draft. You got to pick a pass rusher. You got to pick a receiver. You got to pick something that can help your team right now. Now, the question's going to be is that something that kind of stands out with Kirk Cousins? Is there something with the recovery that maybe it's not for that we have to ask questions?
And he throws the ball really well, but he's had 2 torn ACLs.
Mm-hmm.
He's had 2 major shoulder surgeries.
Yeah, I think it was a head scratcher for sure. I mean, if you're the Atlanta Falcons, you pick somebody in the second or third round to be your future, The
last one I'm going to give you that I thought they did fine day 2, maybe the best, was the Denver Broncos. They get Tony Franklin in the 4th round, 3rd or 4th round. I think it's the 4th round. And they get Adams Drain, the corner out of Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
Really good picks. But you took Bo Nix at 13.
They had to. There was nobody else. They didn't have the ammunition to move up. They would have had to give up a lot of future stuff.
There's still some good players there. I would have just had to have waited and done something different because there's an interview Bo Nix did where he talks about all of them. And he says, basically, the South takes football to him. Have you seen this interview where he says,
I have not.
Football in the South is too important to people, and I can't have fun like I did at Oregon. And this whole interview, if you watch it, Tells me he doesn't love football. Is what it tells me. And it tells me I just couldn't have took him after that.
Well, him and Sean Payton are probably not going to work out then, because Sean Payton, this is all he's got.
That's all he's got.
And he expects everything. I mean, he spent all those years with Drew Brees and then turns around and has not had a quarterback since.
And to a little bit maybe at Auburn, he was not very good. He was pretty good at Oregon at home, not as good on the road. But is part of that Oregon thing a system?
I think it's that and the talent around him.
And who you're playing against.
Yeah, I think when you played at Auburn, that those were the down years for Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that so because of that, he goes to Oregon with a stacked team playing in the Pac-12. It's a little bit easier football, a little easier road to be successful. Now, again, he did bring them to, some deep runs, won a lot of games. We'll see if Sean Payton is what he says he is as the quarterback whisperer. He can either turn him into a good pro quarterback, or that's going to be a pick that'll haunt him for a while.
Well, Russ isn't cooking in Denver anymore, so apparently couldn't get that done either. Let's take one more break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some stuff coming up this week. We'll be right back after hearing a word from our sponsor.
This company is a locally owned family business that has proudly served the Middle Tennessee area since 1934. We have a wide selection of furniture, appliances, electronics, and mattresses for every budget and design taste. We carry the brands that you know and trust, so you're sure to find exactly what you're looking for. Need financing? We have you covered. With our service department, you can rest assured that we will take care of you after the purchase. Visit our Shelbyville store at 400 Madison Street today.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Bill Anderson. Alongside me, Drew Hooker. We'll wrap this thing up, but we want to thank our sponsors here on Bedford County Sports Live. Corner Cleaners right here in Shelbyville, longtime sponsor First Bank right here in Shelbyville for all your banking needs. And Kincaid Service Company right here in Shelbyville. Drew, you don't like all this stuff off, do you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
I'll tell y'all one thing real quick about Kincaid's. I had a buddy of mine yesterday that said, watch the show, needed a refrigerator, and I thought, I don't want to haul mine. That's a good friend of mine. He went to Kincaid's yesterday and bought a refrigerator. So shout out to Mark and Eve Kincaid. And he was very pleased with the service. He didn't have to touch anything. They brought it in his house, and they hauled the old one off.
Oh, it's phenomenal. They have everything you need.
That's right.
If you could need it, they have it. So.
And if you were inclined to haul it off, where are you going to take it? Where's it going? I don't even know where you're going to take the darn thing.
No.
Chain stores don't do that. Kincaid Service Company right here in Shelbyville does. I just want to remind everybody, if you get a chance, get out and support the Shelbyville Golden Eagle baseball team tomorrow night, 6 o'clock. It's senior night against Lawrenceburg out here at the high school with our renovated field. Get out and support the boys on senior night. They got the tournament coming up. They got a chance to get their 20th win tomorrow, and that's a nice milestone for Shelbyville baseball. Coach and I were talking about it yesterday. When he got here, he won 4 games the first year. Takes a minute.
It does. I mean, and he's done a phenomenal job building a good quality program, really making the facilities look nice, taking care of the kids. It's definitely the model that other coaches should look at, because I think they've done a great job.
And that was one thing he asked yesterday in the parking lot when he left after the show. He goes, now, can you and David come do a show as soon as I get everything finished from the press? I said, we absolutely would love to come out there and show those facilities off, and that's what we're going to do as well. So check that out, and hope to have a baseball show up this week. And, of course, we will have the regular Bedford County Sports Live next Saturday right here live at 9 o'clock. For Drew Hooker, I'm Bill Anderson. It was a good draft.
It was. We'll see how it turns out.
What do you give the Titans?
I think a solid B.
That's
B
what I agree. I agree. B to B plus as well. Everybody, get out and support the Golden Eagles. It's senior night tomorrow night, and then the tournament starts on Wednesday, and it's at Lincoln County. Get a chance